Thanks for checking out this episode of Screen Facts with Jason Davis, your movie trivia and discussion podcast, a production of Jason Davis VoiceOver. You can email us at screenfacts@yahoo.com. Also, please visit jasondavisvoice.com/podcast. If you'd like to support the show with a donation or by buying Screen Facts merchandise, there's 2 stores to choose from and a couple of different designs and all kinds of products. So please check it out when you have a chance. Joining me today for this episode is my good pal, Erik Reitz. Welcome back, sir.
Hi, how are you, Jason?
Good. We're going to talk about a movie that you suggested. I'm glad you did because it's a great one. We have talked about the original Rocky on this podcast.
Which was your first?
The very first episode.
When you went solo.
When I went solo, and then I realized that's not going to work. I need to talk with somebody else about these movies.
Much more fun to have a conversation with another person.
A bunch of episodes later, I talked about Rocky Balboa, which is essentially Rocky 6.
Right, yeah.
With my buddy Tim. You suggested Rocky 4.
Yes, I did. It's kind of weird how it happened. I think I was listening to you and Les, maybe, one of your podcasts. Something was said about Rocky, and there was like joy in your voice. And I was like, well, I remember liking Rocky 4.
Yes.
When I saw Rocky 4, 1985 it came out.
November 27th, 1985, the official release date, right around Thanksgiving.
Right. So I was starting my junior year in college. So I was obviously a know-it-all, very critical of many things. I remember watching it, liking it, but also laughing at certain parts.
Okay.
I saw it again later on, probably when I was in my 40s, and I liked it. I remember laughing at certain parts. And then recently just watched it a couple days ago, and I noticed I got a little more misty.
Okay.
At some of the heartfelt family relationship type things. But I just love how this movie, to me, it screams mid-'80s.
Oh.
In that the big hair, the styles, the bright colors of everything, the music, it really brought me back to thinking about USA's relationship with Russia. The Cold War was still going on. The Russians were always the bad guys.
Right.
Stallone captured that. And I really, really enjoyed how Stallone grew Rocky. His first movie was just...
like he's like a thug on the street, pretty much.
Yeah.
But a lovable thug.
A
guy with a
thug.
heart of gold, but he just doesn't have a way out of, I guess, his upbringing or whatever it is.
Yeah, he's kind of trapped. And that's like a man versus man. Rocky 2, it's him and Apollo again, you know. Man versus man. Then he takes on
Mr. T, Clubber Lang.
Clubber. To me, that's more man versus self because, you know, Rocky became comfortable in everything and he lost the eye of the tiger and all that stuff. I thought that movie was great. Then after that, it's like, what do you do? He's done man versus man. He's done man versus himself. Rocky's now been champion for a while. The end of Rocky 3 almost kind of felt like, well, that might kind of be the end of it. And no, I think Stallone was brilliant in coming up with, now it's America. It's USA versus USSR. I mean, the very beginning with the 2 friggin' gloves.
Boxing gloves, yep.
USA, USSR.
And they crash
turning
into each
and they
other
crash and explode like rockets and everything.
Yep.
It's 40 years ago.
I know, it's crazy, right?
You know? And I just actually liked it more now.
Sure.
Than I remember when I was younger.
I think the older we get, the more we appreciate the nostalgia of stuff we grew up with. Now, obviously, you saw this at a later age.
Right.
I was 16 when this movie came out originally.
Right.
So obviously, that's going to hit a teenager differently than it's going to hit somebody in college.
Right.
I look at the nostalgia of it, the way it's shot, all of the lights have that star effect on them. It's like an MTV video, basically.
Right.
You know, there's all these montage sequences and music video elements.
Right. He taps into things. He taps into people and the situation, what's going on. You know, I talked about, there were still parts where I giggled.
Right.
Those were generally the fighting scenes.
Okay.
You know? Because in the first Rocky movie, the boxing felt real. It was sensationalized a little bit because, you know, how many hits can you take?
I think in most boxing movies, they're unrealistic in the sense that they would never let a real fighter get in any kind of trouble like that.
Right.
Like as soon as if they're not defending themselves or whatever, they would stop the fight. Yeah. That's just the way it works.
Right.
So, but obviously in a movie fight, there's going to be some over the topness of it all.
Right. And I have learned to just appreciate that as
That's
just
how
cinema and in this story, he's really going all in on
Right.
this USA versus Russia.
Right.
And I think it's fine. I was just giggling because when he's fighting Drago, he's getting pummeled, and it's like, all right, this is ridiculous.
The thing about Sylvester Stallone, and Les and I talked about this in the First Blood podcast, I think he's always had the ability to really tap into the human condition.
Yeah.
And make you feel something for these characters. He makes you care about these characters, even if this stuff is over the top, if it's a little far-fetched, whatever it is.
Yeah.
Every one of the Rocky movies has heart.
Yes.
And a lot of it centers on his relationship with Adrian. There's a lot of what he feels for her and that love that they have. That's the heart of every one of these movies, and that's why I think they work ultimately. Even though they're over the top. When you're younger, you appreciate people beating the shit out of each other in movies. That's just how it is. If you're a dude, if you're a dude, especially.
Yeah, yeah.
But ultimately, what gives these things staying power to me is the fact that you feel for these characters. Yeah. Like, I remember legitimately the first time I saw this movie feeling a little lost when Apollo dies in the movie.
Yeah, yeah.
And the way he dies,
Yeah, and it's something because when I first watched the movie, and Apollo and Rocky, they're talking about what they used to be, and Apollo's like, I want to fight this guy. I want to show him this is America. He's really getting into this whole thing about being a warrior, and we're different. Rocky, you and I are different from regular people. We're warriors, and then he says, without a war, we might as well be dead.
Right.
And when he said that, I'm watching that and I'm like, oh my God, are they going to kill Apollo off? That actually dawned on me.
Yeah.
And during that fight scene, I read that there was a doctor on scene for, all the fight scenes. And that when Apollo went down and he's doing,
like the
convulsions, the doctor raced up there thinking that he really was hurt.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Because they were really trying to hit each other, but also be respectful because they are just, actors making this movie. But there came a point where, he got physical and he was like throwing Apollo around more. Carl Weathers started to get like ticked off and actually said, I'm not doing this anymore, and walked off on stage. Yeah, he walked off, and Sylvester had to go and like, calm him down and get him to come back. So
wow, I didn't realize that it got really. I know there's a pretty infamous story that when in the fight between Drago and Rocky, Sylvester Stallone. Look, obviously they're not really hitting each other all the time, but for some scenes, Sylvester Stallone has been known. Hey, let me have it here because I want it to look real. And there's a well-documented story that Dolph Lundgren hit him in the chest so hard, and his heart swelled up, and he had to go to the hospital. He had trauma to his chest. Yeah, he almost died, Sylvester Stallone. So, so there's real injuries that can happen, but you hope that they're pulling their punches enough most of the time that it's not, nobody's really going to get hurt.
Well, nobody wants to get hurt doing this, but I can see as an actor, you're getting into this.
There's some physicality for sure.
Oh, yeah. And just all the training that they went through.
Exactly.
I mean, the three of them.
Oh, yeah. They're all in tremendous shape.
Oh, my gosh.
No question.
They looked,
I will say this, too, since we're talking about the scene where Apollo dies. When Drago hits him with that one last punch and his head snaps back and then he just falls forward like a tree. Credit Carl Weathers for doing a face plant like that.
Oh, my God.
Because, listen, it's our nature. If we're falling, you want to brace yourself somehow.
Yeah.
And he full on just does a face plant.
That might have been one of the things that made the doctor be like, holy crap, he's really knocked out.
Yeah, I mean, he really sells.
Because he didn't put his arms out at all.
Yeah.
We're talking a little bit about Dolph Lundgren. I was fascinated by him because when the movie came out, I was like, well, wait a minute, I'm like 6.5 feet tall. If I put on another 100 pounds of muscle, I could be in a Rocky movie, right? But he just fascinates me. When I was looking him up, at first, Sylvester wanted like a big, hairy kind of guy to be, the Russian bear kind of thing.
I got it.
So when they brought Dolph around, the pictures, they just kind of went past him because, he's clean shaven and very chiseled and all that. So it wasn't the look he thought he wanted at first. So Dolph was one of 8,000 actors that was looked at. He's a Swedish model.
Okay.
He's a martial artist champion. He also has a master's degree in chemical engineering, and he turned down going to either Harvard or MIT in order to pursue acting. He was also a musician.
Really?
He did, yes. You know that song, I want to bang on the drum all day.
Yeah.
That's Dolph Lundgren.
I think I got to stop you there, dude.
Yeah.
That was Todd Rundgren.
You sure?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, anyway, be that as it may, he's also just a really huge human being.
And he's got that square jaw, too.
Yeah.
And they also film him from a perspective to make him look even bigger. Yeah, there's no doubt about it. Dolph Lundgren is a presence in the ring, in the movie. It's interesting, though, that Stallone had a different look in mind for the character.
Sylvester's like, he sees his picture again or whatever, and he's like, I don't like this guy. I just don't like him. But you know what? Maybe that's what we need, because if I don't like him, my audience won't like him.
Right.
And
he had a visceral reaction to just his photo.
Yeah.
So maybe he felt like, oh, if people see this guy, they're going to feel the same way.
Yeah. And I think it was the perfect choice, because this whole movie is about Rocky's representing America, and when he's being trained, he's training in the farmland out in the woods and all that. Drago is the machine.
There's a stark difference in the way they train for their fight together.
Yeah.
Obviously done purposely.
Because, we used to always make fun when the Olympics came around. It's like, oh, yeah, all the Russians are all, steroided up and all that stuff. So, of course, he plays on that.
Right.
That's why I think the training montage was fantastic in this.
Yeah. I think you need a training montage in every Rocky movie because people are excited to see that. Here's my theory on that, too. Sylvester Stallone worked very hard to get in the shape that he was in for these movies. Yes. Especially by the time he gets to Rocky 3 and 4, where he is shredded, right?
Right, yeah.
Of course he's going to show that off in the movie.
Hell yeah.
And how he got there.
Absolutely.
And he's going to do these crazy exercises where he's doing sit-ups like from a 90-degree angle. And shit.
Right. I like the one that he's doing leg lifts,
but
then he's like doing it off like the back of his neck.
Yeah.
Like,
I mean,
I can't do
and you
one
watch
leg
that
lift.
as an audience member. At least I remember the first time I saw that going, I'm impressed.
Of course.
Like, that's amazing.
Of course.
So in 2021, Sylvester Stallone oversaw a ultimate director's cut of Rocky IV called Rocky IV, Rocky versus Drago.
Okay.
It's a whole retelling of this movie.
Okay.
Now, is it a completely new movie? No. However, it is edited with footage not seen in the original theatrical release.
Okay.
The pacing is different. There are subtle differences that humanize Drago a little bit.
Good. All right.
But it also gives more depth to Creed, Adrian, and Rocky.
Okay.
Stallone said, this is really what I wanted the movie to be.
Okay.
But I think he admitted that he kind of got hung up in a lot of the hype of the Cold War and the MTV era. Movies were made differently in the 80s. And then as an older person and in the times that we're in now, he was able to look at this movie again. He took like actual negatives of stuff that they had shot for the movie that got edited out originally because probably for pacing. And when put in and taking some other stuff out, like the robot stuff, which is completely useless. It's just there for comic relief. I think it's a better movie.
Yeah. Okay.
Because it focuses more on the reasons Apollo Creed wants to fight the Russian.
Okay.
It actually tones down the propaganda machine a little bit. It's really more about depth in the characters. The funeral scene is extended.
All right.
And it really gives it more depth.
Okay.
There's a whole conversation that he has with Adrian when Apollo first says he wants to fight Drago.
Yeah.
That kind of has more depth.
Okay.
How she shows up in Russia has more depth. There's just a lot. And there's even subtle differences in the fight. The speech that he gives at the end is much shorter.
Okay.
And it's not as political.
Okay.
But it does highlight, if I can change and you can change.
Right. More of the human.
Right. More of the human aspect as opposed to it being political.
Yeah. Good.
But in the theatrical release, after Rocky gives the speech, Gorbachev stands up and he starts applauding.
Right.
And then he looks to his left and right and he tells the other people, you stand up too and applaud kind of thing.
Yeah.
In the director's cut, he stands up and he walks right out. He doesn't even acknowledge it. Yeah, so it's very interesting. Right. I feel like in the director's cut, he gets to show a little more depth to himself as an actor, too.
Yeah.
The guilt that he feels about Apollo's death. And he gives a speech at the funeral that's more poignant. Duke, his trainer, also has a little bit more of a moment at the funeral, too.
Okay.
Which is very cool. And by the way, Tony Burton, we should talk about him. He's the actor
great.
That plays Duke. He's the only actor besides Sylvester Stallone and Burt Young that are in all 6 of the original Rocky movies.
Yeah. Whenever we talk about Stallone, we talk about how he does it all. He puts himself into everything. One thing, a story I read for the last fight scene, he actually did a script of the fight scene. And when Dolph Lundgren got it, can you imagine being Dolph Lundgren? You get a script and it says left, right, left hook, right hook, duck.
Oh, wow.
Duck, weave.
So the choreography is actually written into the script?
He wrote a lot of this down.
Wow. I mean, I know they spend a lot of time choreographing the fight scenes.
Yeah.
But I didn't know he literally writes out punch by punch how he wants it to look.
Apparently,
I mean, I'm guessing that that's sort of an outline. So he has kind of an idea. And then once they get in the ring, they kind of, they do different camera angles and all kinds of stuff. Right. So let's say in the movie, the entire fight is 10 or 15 minutes of screen time. Just as an estimate.
Yeah.
It probably takes weeks to shoot that footage and then edit it together in a way that it makes sense when you're watching it in the movie.
Yeah.
So I tip my hat, so to speak, to Sylvester Stallone and the editors for putting it together and making it something that we watch and we feel what we feel.
Right, right. Yeah. Going back a little bit to the differences between, America and Russia. And even though this is, I think, pretty clearly a pro-American.
Of course it is.
Versus Russian. But it wasn't so pro-American that the Americans were never in the wrong.
Right.
There were definitely points where they were.
Right.
After he kills Creed, and they're announcing that they're going to fight Rocky, but it's going to be in Russia because, he's not, Drago's not safe.
That's one of the differences in the director's cut. There's a whole scene with the fighting commission.
Okay.
Where they deny Rocky. They're like, no, you can't fight this guy. He hasn't been in a professional fight before.
Right.
The fight that he had with Creed was an exhibition and he got killed. We can't take a chance and blah, blah, blah.
Oh.
So it's a whole thing that they don't want to sanction the fight. They make the reason that they fight in Russia is because that's the only place he can fight.
That's great.
Exactly. That's why I think the director's cut is superior. That works better because it makes more sense.
Yeah.
Sylvester Stallone, when he was putting together the director's cut, his goal was to make it more emotionally grounded like the early Rocky movies.
Okay. One of the things you were saying, how they give Drago a little bit more humanity or whatever. Yeah. That's really great. I like hearing that because, in the original, he does near the end of the fight, he is getting frustrated that obviously that he's not winning. And at one point, he's yelling that I fight for me.
Right.
Oh, you don't say that in Russia. You're fighting for Mother Russia.
Yeah, there's just subtle things that they put in the director's cut that show that he's being controlled by the Russian government, and he's not okay with that. There's enough that they allow him to express that gives his character more depth than he has in the theatrical release, where he's just a killing machine, literally.
Right.
And I think that it serves the character and the movie a lot.
Okay.
So a couple of quick notes.
Yeah.
This was the highest grossing film in the Rocky franchise.
Okay.
Worldwide total of somewhere in the neighborhood of 300 million.
Okay.
This film was not made in Russia. It was not filmed in Russia. It was filmed in Wyoming and Vancouver, the Russia scenes.
Right, okay.
That's the other thing that when I was watching the director's cut with Sue, I commented to her when we were watching. I said, they really did a great job of making what's supposed to be Russia, at least the area where he's training, look like the last place in the world you'd want to be.
Yeah.
Like snow, cold, icicles all over the cabin, just terrible.
Yeah. Yeah, no roads, no power lines. Would you consider this a Christmas movie?
No, I would not consider this a Christmas movie.
Even though the big fight, the big crescendo happened on Christmas.
I'll tell you why. The reason that I don't think it's a Christmas movie is because other than the fact that they say that the fight's going to take place on Christmas, there's no other reference to Christmas besides that. Let's talk about the music in this movie.
Yeah.
This movie in particular was full of, I don't want to say hits.
Right, yeah.
But there was definitely, it seemed like there was an effort to have movie tie-ins that could be on MTV, which was very peaking at this time.
Right,
1985, MTV was on fire.
Yep,
it was huge. So you had Burning Heart by Survivor, which is played when they're flying into Russia. That was a pretty sizable hit. Living in America, James Brown, big hit.
I think that was his highest hit.
Probably.
Ever.
Certainly later in his career.
Yeah.
No Easy Way Out by Robert Tepper, which I remember seeing the video for that, and I think that would probably was a top 40 hit, if not better.
Right.
Hearts on Fire was John Cafferty. John Cafferty was the artist that provided the music for Eddie and the Cruisers.
Yes.
A few years before this.
Yeah, that was good.
I think that the music is great in this movie.
Mm-hmm. I know we're probably winding down, but one thing I just, remembered when, like we talked about how Apollo was talking about how warriors need a war or, or we might as well be dead. Mm-hmm. Then later in the movie, after Rocky decides that he's going to fight and he's talking with Adrian and he's essentially saying the same thing to her. He's saying, I'm a fighter, it's what I do, it's what I know kind of thing. And it's just like, oh crap, man, he's using the same line as Apollo.
What's interesting is that in Rocky 3, there's a scene where Adrian confronts Rocky because his heart's not really into the training for his rematch with Clubber Lang. Rocky admits that he's scared, and Adrian then helps talk him through it. And then he says, how'd you get so tough? And she says, I married a fighter. And so I think it's interesting that there's a part of this movie where she doesn't understand his mentality of wanting, she's like,
right.
Even if you win, he's still gone. What's the point of this?
Right. And then she ends up just flat out saying, you can't win.
Right. I think she's always looking out for him because all that matters to her is they have each other because that's the love story.
But yeah, because in the second movie, like he stops training because, she's pregnant and having a tough pregnancy.
Yeah, and Rocky 2, the whole time she's like, I don't want you to fight. And then Paulie confronts her saying, you're messing with this guy's head. And they have this big argument. And then she goes into premature labor, ends up slipping into a coma. And Rocky stays by her side the whole time she's in a coma when he should be training. Eventually she wakes up and she says, there's one thing I want you to do for me. He leans in. And she says, win. And now he's got the motivation to get to train and get ready to face Apollo again. So more than once, Adrian and Rocky aren't on the same page in terms of whether he should fight or not, but eventually she comes around. At the heart of every one of these movies is the love that he has with Adrian.
Yeah.
And that's what grounds everything else.
Yeah.
That's why the movies work, because ultimately what fuels Rocky to be successful and to win is love.
Yeah.
Whether it's his love for Adrian or in this movie, his love for Apollo.
Yeah.
And these movies, maybe we're reading too much into it as fans, but I think they're great. They make me feel every time. I'm telling you, every time I watch Rocky 2, when he gives his speech at the end of Rocky 2 after he beats Apollo to win the championship. And he goes, other than my kid being born, this is the best thing that's ever happened to me. And I just want to say to my wife who's at home, yo, Adrian, I did it. And he holds up the belt. Yeah. Like I tear up every time. Like I'm actually literally feeling a lump in my throat right now.
Yeah.
Because it's powerful shit, man.
It is. And if it goes over a top a little bit, so what? The message is there. The story is there.
Yeah. It's a great character. I love the character. Who hasn't felt like an underdog in their life?
Yeah. We always like the underdog to come out top.
Yep. So in summary, the original Rocky IV, great for nostalgia. But if you really want to feel these characters with a little more depth and a little less propaganda, I highly recommend checking out Rocky IV, Rocky vs. Drago, the ultimate director's cut on streaming platforms. Thanks, Erik.
You're welcome.
Thanks so much for listening. We really appreciate it. And if you want to get in touch with us, you can email us at screenfacts@yahoo.com. Please visit jasondavisvoice.com/podcast if you'd like to support the show with a donation, or if you'd like to check out some of the Screen Facts merchandise. There's all kinds of merchandise that you can buy, and there's 2 different stores that you can check out, and each one might be better than the other in terms of deals that you can get. So check them both out if you want to buy merchandise. Screen Facts with Jason Davis is a production of Jason Davis Voiceover.
If he dies, he dies.